It started like just another day in America's endless political drama. Another hearing, another headline, another argument about whether the rules apply differently to powerful people. But by the end of that day, everything changed. What happened inside that federal courtroom was not a rumor, not a leak, and not political spin. It happened in plain sight, on the record, in front of witnesses. And it shattered one of the most stubborn assumptions in modern American politics, that Donald Trump could push forever without ever hitting a wall. For years, Americans have watched Trump bend norms, attack institutions, and dare anyone to stop him. Judges were mocked, prosecutors were insulted, court orders were treated like suggestions instead of commands, and each time the same question followed: is anyone actually going to enforce the rules? On this day, the answer finally came. The hearing itself was supposed to be routine, another procedural fight in a growing pile of cases tied to Trump's legal troubles. The courtroom was full but not electric. Reporters took notes, lawyers shuffled papers, the judge reviewed motions. No one expected history. They expected delay. They expected noise. They expected Trump to complain and walk out untouched, just like always. But something was different. The judge, already frustrated after finding Trump in contempt multiple times, had just ruled against him again. Another motion denied. Another attempt to slow things down rejected. The message from the bench was clear: enough is enough. And that's when Trump snapped. According to multiple people inside the courtroom, Trump stood up. Not slowly, not calmly. He pointed directly at the judge and said words that froze the room. This wasn't a social media rant. This wasn't a campaign speech. This wasn't vague criticism. It was a direct personal threat delivered face to face, in open court. You're done. You're finished. When I'm back in office, you're going to pay for this. Silence followed. Not the awkward kind. The kind that tells you everyone in the room knows something irreversible just happened. The kind where even breathing feels too loud. In that moment, the rules stopped being theoretical. This wasn't politics anymore. This was the justice system being challenged in its own house. And then the Marshals moved. There was no debate. No warning, no dramatic pause. Within seconds, federal marshals were at Trump's side. He was informed he was under arrest for contempt of court and for threatening a federal official. The same man who once commanded the most powerful office on earth was now being restrained in a courtroom he had just tried to dominate. Trump yelled. He demanded to speak to his lawyers. He demanded immunity. He demanded everything. None of it mattered. The law does not pause for status. The law does not negotiate with threats. The handcuffs went on. This wasn't a movie scene. It wasn't symbolism. It was reality. And it sent shockwaves through the legal world, the political world, and the public consciousness all at once. For years, critics warned that Trump's behavior would eventually collide with real consequences. Supporters insisted it never would. That moment was the collision. The instant where rhetoric became action, and action triggered accountability. As Trump was led out of the courtroom, people didn't cheer. They didn't gasp. They stared. Because everyone understood the same thing at the same time. This wasn't just about Trump. This was about whether the justice system still had teeth. Outside the courtroom, chaos erupted. Phones lit up. News alerts exploded. Social media filled with disbelief, celebration, anger, and fear. Within minutes, the footage began spreading. A former president in custody. A line finally enforced. And just like that, the question changed. It was no longer, can Trump get away with this? It became, what happens now? But to understand why this moment mattered so much, you have to understand how long it took to get here, and how many times Trump dared the system to stop him. A pattern of defiance that finally backfired. What happened in that courtroom did not come out of nowhere. It was the end of a long, very public pattern, one that stretched back years and crossed line after line without consequence. Until now, Donald Trump has never treated the judicial system like an equal branch of government. He treated it like an obstacle. Judges were biased. Courts were rigged. Rulings he didn't like were political attacks. And each insult chipped away at something bigger than his own cases. It chipped away at the idea that courts deserve respect, even when you lose. In most criminal cases, defendants are warned early and often. Don't talk about jurors, don't intimidate witnesses, don't attack the court, violate those rules, and consequences follow quickly. Fines, restrictions, jail. But Trump's cases operated in a strange gray zone. Judges hesitated. Prosecutors moved carefully. Everyone knew the stakes were higher because of who he was. That hesitation became fuel. Every gag order violation turned into a fundraising email. Every contempt finding became a campaign talking point. Trump didn't just ignore the rules, he weaponized the consequences. Small fines meant nothing to him. Public warnings became proof in his telling that the system feared him. Even judges acknowledged the problem. Monetary penalties were clearly not working. Being told to stop only made Trump louder. And behind closed doors, one question kept coming up. What happens when warnings run out? The judge in this case had been especially clear. She warned Trump personally, not through lawyers, not through filings, directly. She explained that his status as a former president did not protect him from contempt. She told him that threats, even implied ones, would not be tolerated. She laid out the line. Trump didn't just cross it, he stomped on it. This is what made the moment so legally serious. Threatening a judge in open court is not political speech. It is not opinion, it is not protected expression. It is intimidation. And when it happens in front of marshals, court staff, and recorded transcripts, it becomes something much worse, undeniable. Trump's lawyers immediately went into damage control mode. They argued immunity, they argued free speech, they argued context. But the law is brutally simple here. There is no immunity for threatening a federal officer. There is no First Amendment shield for intimidation. And there is no gray area when dozens of people hear the same words at the same time. When Trump was brought back for the contempt hearing, the atmosphere had changed. This wasn't another warning session. This was accountability catching up. The judge reminded him of every prior violation, every ignored instruction, every chance he was given to stop. And then she ruled. Criminal contempt. Not a fine, not a scolding. A formal finding that Trump willfully violated court authority. He was ordered held pending a full hearing on the threat itself. That meant custody. Real custody. Overnight, for the first time, Trump experienced what millions of defendants experience every year: the loss of control. No press conference, no rally, no Truth Social post, just a holding cell and the weight of his own words. Politically, the reaction split exactly how you'd expect. Supporters called it persecution. Critics called it overdue. But something important happened beneath the noise. The conversation shifted from whether Trump crossed lines to how many laws he may have broken doing it. And that shift matters. Because now, every judge overseeing Trump-related cases is watching this unfold. They're seeing what happens when authority is enforced. They're seeing that the sky doesn't fall when a former president is treated like any other defendant. And that realization may change everything going forward. The message was no longer subtle. The judiciary had finally said it out loud through action, not words. Compliance is not optional. And Trump, for the first time, could not talk his way out of it. The legal and political shockwaves. The arrest itself was only the beginning. The real impact came in the hours and days that followed, as the legal and political consequences started to ripple outward. Legally, Trump now faces two overlapping problems. First, the criminal contempt finding, which carries its own penalties, including potential jail time. Second, the threat against a federal judge, which is a serious standalone offense. This is not a technical violation. This is not paperwork. This is the kind of charge that prosecutors take very seriously because it strikes at the heart of the justice system. Trump's legal team is boxed in. Immunity arguments don't apply. Free speech defenses collapse under the facts. The threat was direct. It was personal. It was on the record. And it was delivered in a place where words carry immediate legal weight. That reality changes Trump's entire legal strategy. He's no longer just defending past actions. He's dealing with new conduct that happened under active court supervision. Judges have far less patience for behavior that occurs in their own courtroom. Politically, the fallout has been explosive. Every candidate, every lawmaker, every party leader is being forced to respond. Silence looks like approval. Defense looks like endorsement. Condemnation risks alienating voters. There is no safe position. For Democrats, the message is simple. The rule of law still matters. For Republicans, the situation is far more dangerous. Supporting Trump now means defending someone who threatened a judge and was arrested for it. That's not abstract, that's concrete. And voters understand the difference. The video of the arrest has become a defining image, not because it humiliates Trump, but because it removes the illusion of untouchability. Once people see power restrained, they stop assuming it's limitless. This moment also reshapes future court proceedings. Judges who were previously cautious may now feel empowered. Gag orders may be enforced more aggressively. Violations may carry real consequences instead of warnings. The era of endless leniency may be ending, and that should concern Trump more than any single charge, because his entire strategy has relied on delay, defiance, and distraction. But none of those work when a judge decides enforcement matters more than optics. The political calendar doesn't pause for legal crises. Campaigns continue, primaries approach, but now every appearance Trump makes carries a new question. Can he follow the rules? That question will follow him into every courtroom, every debate, and every headline. And it leads directly to the final issue, the one no one can avoid anymore. What this really means for America. This wasn't just a dramatic day in court. It was a stress test for American democracy. And for the first time in a long time, the system pushed back and held. For years, people argued that holding a former president accountable would tear the country apart, that enforcing the law would cause chaos. But what actually happened was something quieter and more powerful. The system functioned, marshals did their jobs, a judge enforced her authority, the law moved forward. That matters more than any single defendant. Because when powerful people face consequences, the rules regain meaning. When courts enforce boundaries, institutions rebuild trust. And when no one is above the law, democracy breathes a little easier. This moment doesn't end Trump's influence. It doesn't resolve his cases. It doesn't settle political divisions. But it does something essential. It proves that defiance has limits. The real question now isn't whether Trump will fight back. He will. The real question is whether the system will keep holding the line. If this happened once, what happens the next time Trump crosses a line? And what happens if he finally realizes that the consequences are no longer symbolic? One thing is certain. The era of endless warnings is over. The era of enforcement has begun. And history just turned the page.